Okay, so on the first page of your warm-up packet, you just have a series of circles and some instructions at the bottom. It says to put a vanishing point anywhere in the middle. It doesn't have to be the exact middle. And then you want to catch the very edge of the circle that you can get. Don't have the ruler going inside the circle at all. Make sure you're catching the edge. And this is basically like drawing cylinders. Make sure that your curve back here is curved enough. You're trying to mimic a parallel curve to this line. A lot of times you'll lose points on this page if your curves are flattened out too much. So you're going to go all the way around. I'm not going to take the time to do every circle, just a few to show you. But practice doing curves at different thicknesses. So some you might want to make really skinny in here. Yeah, I had them ready Friday and you weren't here, but just remind me when you get in here. You talking about the letter home for your parents? Yeah. So do different thicknesses. You may want to kind of get a feel for the curve and make sure that you round yours off enough. If they're too flat like that, that's what I'm going to take points off for. Okay, so that one's pretty easy. The next one gets a little harder. Again, you're going to draw a vanishing point anywhere in the middle. So yours is going to start looking different from your neighbor's. It depends on where your vanishing point is, how your shapes look. Okay, so with stars, you're going to have some of your lines start to disappear behind it. You know the baby toy, the ball, and then it's got the cutout shapes and the kid tries to match the shape to the hole. So that's what you're creating, yeah, kind of like a puzzle. You're creating a three-dimensional shape like that block. So every outer and inner point of your star has to go to the vanishing point, but some of them you're going to skip because they're out of view. But you need to check each one. I usually start closest to the vanishing point and then work to the back. So you see this back point, it basically is the same as this line because it's right behind that point, so I'm going to skip it because basically it's going through the star. So then go to this outer point, the inner point, I'm going to skip. You don't draw anything through the star because the star is a solid object, not see-through. So I'm going to skip this, and it's right in line with the top, so that's going to be behind the star as well. This is behind the star, but once I get to over here, I'm going to draw part of it, but when I get to the star, I'm going to stop. Don't draw through the star. It's going behind the star. Okay? Now, this is where it gets tricky. So what you're going to do is, do you see how this and this arm are going the same way? Start on the lines closest to you where you have these big spaces. Find the two lines that are going the same way and draw your parallel lines at the same time. So I'm going to use what's in my ruler. See how I'm putting my numbers on the arm of the star? That's going to help you draw your two parallel lines out here. So with 1 point perspective, the main thing you've got to remember is once you get your vanishing point set up, you're drawing parallel lines to what's inside these two radial lines. Remember, radial lines come out from a center point. So this line has to match the angle of this line. So use something in your ruler, whether it's the lines, the numbers, or anything, to make sure you're going the same direction. And go ahead and draw them at the same time because people will have them all different ways. And then when I'm drawing this one, do you see how these two arms are going the same way? So I can't use the same numbers to draw my line because we're changing directions. But I know that this line is going to come out because this line is coming out. It has to meet at this corner. So I'm going to find what's near. So now my inch lines are near it, and they happen to just sit right there on the star. Now, I'm using this one. I can't draw a line way out here for this. The back of that arm is hidden behind the star, but I still want to use that back arm to make sure that I'm not drawing an angle like this. Do you see how that would be wrong? It's not parallel. So if I drew an angle going that way, it's not parallel to these two. You got to look at both of them at the same time. Okay, I'm going to do one more star real quick. You check inner and outer. Even if it's a little sliver, you draw it. Not that one. When you hit another arm of the star, you stop. Let me get a little sliver on this one. So it just depends on where your vanishing point is, how your lines go. Okay, so you see how awkward this leg is going to be? So we're going to find two of the wide open spots and start in it first. I'm going to do a skinny one this time. So I'm going to put the little 1/2 inch marks on the arm of my star and draw the two parallel lines in the radial area. And then this is going to be my next set of arms. So I need to look at them together. Make sure that the ruler is going parallel to both arms and draw that angle. And then these two are going the same way. And it has to connect. So make sure it's going parallel and make sure you connect it. And you're just not going to see in those slivers. Okay, the half moon is basically just like the back of a circle. So you did that on the first page. Just make sure you get a good curve. With your rectangle, you're only going to be able to connect 3 points. The back one is hidden. Make sure you use something in your ruler to get a parallel line. You don't want it to go like this. You see how that's not parallel, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Now, a lot of times people will just close that off, and that's where you'll lose points, because if you just close it off randomly and it's not parallel with this back line, then it's wrong. In between the two radial lines, you have to have a parallel line. So make sure you use that. A heart is similar to the circles, but you got to catch any point in the outside of any curve.
So it's just a circle and it's like square combined?
Yeah, because you have points and curves. Make sure that you don't end up a line right here. Make sure you catch the outer part of the curve that you can, and then match the curve here at the top. Okay. This third page, I'll get my stencils out. I have, let's see if I can find it real quick. I have stencils that you can use for the star and the heart, but you'll have to draw the little house shape yourself. So basically you can use the bottom of your ruler and then connect it. So kind of the medium, but when you do these, I want you to do the shapes in the same spot. So the heart in the bottom left, the star in the top left, and then the house. You don't necessarily have to draw the whole horizon line. Just do the vanishing point somewhere along this middle. For your house, you can just trace the bottom of your ruler and then do your triangle at the top. Okay, and then once again, you're just going to check all your points, all your curves that will go to the vanishing point, and this kind of shows you step by step, and then draw your parallel lines. And probably the last one you'll get to today is doing your initials. Remember, if you can't draw letters very well, write your letter and then trace around it. But when you do your letter, it needs to take up about the same amount of space. Don't do like a 1-inch tiny little letter. So you can do bubble letters with curves, or you can do block letters with points. And it depends on how you draw it, how you do your vanishing point lines. But you have to check every inner and outer point and curve to see if it will go to the vanishing point. And then when you start getting really confused about what line goes what direction, your answer is back here. If this line is going vertical, the line out here has to go vertical. If this one's horizontal, the other one has to go horizontal. And since these are basically doing the same thing, you can, if you're doing it skinny enough, draw both of those at the same time, and then that determines the thickness of your letter, because you're making it all connect. Okay? So a lot of times when y'all draw just random cubes, you're not really using 1-point perspective like we are now, because these are not going to a vanishing point, but it still looks three-dimensional. This has to change angles and go to your vanishing point, so don't just wing drawing a block letter. Okay, I'll go ahead and come hand out